Hi guys, it's Tablet Guy, and today we're back with a new video. So for this 2017 version of our guide, we have the LG Watch Sport, Apple Watch Series 2, Samsung Gear S3, LG Watch Style, Huawei Watch 2, Apple Watch Series 1. So some of these products may have multiple versions, 42mm and 38mm sizes for the Apple Watches, and two different styles for the Gear and Huawei Watch. Will denote that there are differences. Well, you'll see only one spec and a different kind of version but you'll be able to make out which version is the best, and we'll be able to compare them in a very good way. So first of all, we'll go to the size. Now as you can see, the LG Watch Sport, Samsung Gear S3 and Huawei Watch 2 are larger watches that will typically make more sense on the men's wrist. The two Apple Watches and LG Watch Style are the most unisex watches, more size appropriate on women's wrists than the others are. Now we'll have a look at the build material on these watches. These are the main body build materials that you'll be working with. The Series 2 Apple Watch varies depending on whether you are going with the entry-level aluminum, higher-end stainless steel, or the highest-level ceramic variant. The Huawei Watch 2 varies in material. The standard version uses a ceramic and plastic, while the classic version is made of steel and plastic. Now we'll test the Android capability of the watches. Now as you can see that almost all the watches are compliant with Android, apart from the Apple ones. As Apple works on its own operating system, the iOS, therefore, it doesn't work with any of the Android smartphones. Now we'll have a look at the iPhone compatibility. As you can see that all the 6 watches will work with the iPhone, but due to iOS restrictions, the Android variant smartwatches will be more limited in some ways while paired with an Apple handset. For example, the LG smartwatch won't receive notification from your phone when it's in standalone mode if you're using an iPhone, but it will if you have an Android phone. Now let's talk about the cellular or the LTE connectivity. Only a few watches give you the option of staying connected when your smartphone isn't around. The LG Watch Sport is an all LTE smartwatch. There's no Bluetooth only option. The Samsung Gear S3 ships in both cellular and the Bluetooth only variants. The Huawei Watch 2, however, has an LTE variant too, but that model isn't sold in the US. So that just leaves an option of Samsung Gear S3 and LG Watch Sport. And now we'll quickly view the most important feature of the smartwatch, and that is the display size. The LG Watch Sport has the biggest display, followed by the Gear S3. The area percentage of the Apple Watch points to the 44mm model. The screen of the 37mm Apple Watch is just 57% as big as the Sport's huge display. Another important feature is the display resolution. The Watch Sport also has the highest pixel density, though none of the watch's pixels counts are any cause of concern. While resolution is the same on two series of Apple Watch, note that the Series 2 has a brighter display that's easier to read outdoors. You don't want to have a great watch with a great resolution but scratch it or break the glass, so we'll have a look at the display material. As you can see that all the Android versions of the smartwatches are basically coming with Gorilla Glass 3. Only the Apple will come with either an Iron X Glass or Sapphire. So the most expensive steel and ceramic versions of Apple Watch jump up to sapphire display coverings for the strongest protection in the bunch. So usually the sapphire is more stronger than any of these other watches. So let's have a look at the functionality and the practicality of the smartwatch. Whether any of these smartwatches will be having an always on display. Yes, we have all of them but the Apple Watch will give you an option of having an always-on clock face. The two LG watches though earn those asterisks. However, their batteries probably will not make it through a full day if you turn that settings on. Let's see if these watches are having the pressure-sensitive screen. Similar to the 3D touch feature found on the recent iPhones, you can keep a deep press on the Apple Watch's screen to activate various shortcuts through its operating system. Now let's have a look at the scrolling input. It might sound odd, but we're fans of twisty input methods on smartwatches. The rotating crowns on the Apple Watch and the LG watches, along with the rotating bezel on the Samsung Gear, lets you scroll through menus and notifications without repeatedly dragging your fingers over these tiny screens. The app shortcut buttons. The LG Watch Sport has two physical buttons that can be set as customizable app shortcuts for something like starting a workout, using Android Pay, or checking the weather. The Huawei Watch has one such button, while the other watches don't have any shortcut buttons, unfortunately. Now we have to look at another very important feature, that is the water resistance. Water resistance is becoming more and more popular these days in smartwatches, and it's very practical too, because you cannot afford to take off your wristwatches every now and then for a hand wash or a swim in the pool or probably in the rain. Now, we've got these smartwatches, and believe me, LG's Watch Sport is gaming it all. Also, the Samsung Gear S3 and also the Huawei Watch 2 is having the IP68, but the rest of the watches can do up to IP67. Now, Apple Watch 2 has a feature of being water resistant up to 50 meters. That means you can go down in the pool, and then it's very much recommended for swimming. Now we'll have a look at the virtual assistant. All 6 has some sort of voice assistant on board. Google Assistant for 3 Android watches, Siri for the Apple watches, and Samsung was in the bunch, S-Voice for the Gear. Keep in mind, though, that all the voice assistants have limitations compared to their smartphone counterparts. In our experience, the watch version of Siri is more capable than the watch versions of Google Assistant and S-Voice, whereas on iPhone we'd put the Google Assistant ahead. Now we'll have a look at the mobile payments. Only the LG Watch Star lacks any sort of mobile payment functionality. Android Pay and Apple Pay use NFC technology exclusively, which means that vendor will have to need special equipment installed to support these services. Samsung Pay includes tech that allows it to work with any standard magnetic swipe reading credit card machines in addition to NFC. You can make phone calls on all but the stand, which allows you to make and pick up phone calls on the watch. And here's one of the reasons that the style doesn't support those calls on the speakers. The limitation of the style are becoming more apparent, as it also lacks a heart rate sensor. All 6 watches have built-in apps and sensors that can track your steps or individual workouts. Keep in mind though that the tracking a workout can drain batteries faster. All but the Star and the Series 1 Apple Watches have built-in GPS, so they don't need to leech your phone's location. For the battery, none of the watches should give you much trouble making it through a full day, though remember you will want to turn off the always-on display option for the 2 LG watches. The LG Watch Star's battery life isn't very impressive, even with the always-on display turned off. 5 of the watches let you swap out for a different band if you aren't a fan of the one it is shipped with. There's a very good reason you can't switch the sport band. Its cellular antenna live inside the band. This is my favorite part, the processor. We only included watches that have recently fairly fast processors. Even the Apple Watch Series 1, which is a very minor update over the original, often called the Series 0 Apple Watch, has a pretty zippy dual-core processor. The RAM. The Apple Watches and the Style have a bit less RAM than the rest, but we didn't notice any major performance concerns on any one of them. Software. The LG watches and the Huawei run Android Wear 2.0, while the Apple Watches uses Watch OS 3. Samsung employs its own Tizen OS, our least favorite of the 3 for the Gear S3. Apple Watch OS has by far the best app selection. On the other hand, the Android Wear watches have the perk of using an overboard version of the Google Play Store, so you can install apps without the help of your phone. And now, the price. As you can see, apparently that the Series 2 Apple Watch is the most expensive in this group. With that base price representing the smaller 38mm model, the 42mm one aluminum starts with a heftier $399. If you want the stainless steel slash sapphire Apple Watch Series 2, you're looking for at a minimum of 549 38mm or 599 42mm. The ceramic edition of Apple Watch starts at 1249 for the 38mm or 1299 for the 42mm. Guys, if I have a verdict and I have to choose a watch, I would definitely choose the LG Watch Sport. If you see, all the features of the LG Watch Sport are to the top level. Apart from the battery, well, we don't know, but maybe there's an upgrade which might be coming on in the future, which might fix the battery issue. The watches that stand out are Samsung Gear S3 and the LG Watch Sport. I'm not a very big fan of Apple Watch 2, but I think it's improving day by day. So guys, don't forget to put your comments. If you like this video, hit the thumbs up and don't forget to subscribe. Thank you for watching.